Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the TU Alumni Panel as part of this month's Discover TU admission events. My name is Teresa Bont, and I'm with the University of Tulsa's Office of Admission. I've been with TU almost 18 years. I work out of my home office in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm also the parent of a recent TU graduate. I am joined this evening by several TU alumni, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you after a few announcements. I would ask that you please post your city and state in the chat, as we would love to know where everybody is from. After each of the panelists introduce themselves, I'm going to ask the questions of them that were submitted on the registration forms, and we received lots of questions through the registration forms, so thank you for submitting those. We have turned off all cameras and microphones, so should you have any questions throughout the session, please post them in the chat and I will ask the panelists your questions. I also am joined by my colleague who happens to be a TU alumna herself, Hannah Smith, and she will be monitoring the chat, and she's able to answer any of your admission related questions there as well. Following the Q&A with the TU alumni, you'll have an opportunity to join them in 4 different breakout rooms to chat with them personally. At that time, you'll have the opportunity to turn on your video and audio for more casual and candid conversation. Each room will have a specific topic. We'll have one on career readiness, diversity, equity, and inclusion, campus life, and TU parents. I want to mention that we are recording this panel discussion and Q&A, but we are not recording the breakout room conversations. I'm going to start with Hannah, my colleague, for introductions, and then I'll turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Thomas Porter. But if you could share a little bit about your time at TU, your graduation year, your occupation, and your involvement with the TU Alumni Association. So I will start with you, Hannah.
Hi, everyone. As Teresa said, my name is Hannah Smith. I'm an admission counselor in the Office of Admission. I graduated from TU with a degree in psychology and double minored in marketing and women's and gender studies. I graduated in 2016 and fell in love with the University of Tulsa, the city of Tulsa, so much so that I wanted to stick around. So they found a spot for me in the Office of Admission, and I've been here for going on 5 years now.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Porter. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and graduated from the University of Tulsa in 2014 with a Bachelor's of Science in Energy Management and Finance. I currently live in Denver, Colorado, where I work as a senior land negotiator for Occidental Petroleum. And my involvement with the TU Alumni Association consists of a board member for the Alumni Association Board of Directors. I formerly the Houston Chapter Alumni President, and one of the inaugural members of the Black Alumni Leadership Council.
Hi, I'm Lucinda Rojas Ross, and I am an 06 grad with a BA in Communication and minors in Marketing and Spanish. I'm originally from the Texas Panhandle, the Amarillo, Texas area, and my involvement with TU, I've stayed plugged in ever since I graduated, and so started off at the Tulsa chapter. I'm a past president of the Tulsa chapter, and I'm now a member of the Alumni Association board. And I have the honor and privilege of serving as the leader of marketing communications for Live Church, which, if you're not familiar with, is a multi-site church with 36 locations in 11 states.
Hi there, I'm Chad Smith. I am the class of 1993, so I think that makes me the seasoned member on the panel here. Graduated with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I actually am born and raised in Tulsa, so I have kind of an interesting perspective going to college in the city that I grew up in. And I'm a partner in a company called Airtech Corporation. We design and sell HVAC systems in the commercial world. I've been involved with TU on the alumni level for basically 30 plus years, but probably the most memorable thing is I met my beautiful bride at TU, and I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Carrie Smith, married to Chad, and I graduated from the University of Tulsa in 1996 with a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and Accounting. I am a CPA, and I once graduated, went to work full-time in the public sector, and then went into industry before we had our children, stayed at home for a while, and I'm back working in the accounting world. We have a child, we have two children. We have one that is in her third year at the University of Tulsa and have stayed actively involved in a variety of social organizations to help serve on those corporation boards.
Good evening. My name is Geneva Vasquez. I graduated from the University of Tulsa in 2009 with a bachelor's in economics and minors in marketing and political science. After graduating TU, I went to law school, and so I'm a practicing attorney. I have my own law firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm originally from New Mexico, and I've been involved with TU since graduating in different chapters in the different places I've lived, chapters and clubs, and I am currently the club representative for the North Carolina Club and on the TU Alumni Board.
Guess that means it's me. Hi, my name is Ron Walker. I am a 1995 Bachelor of Science in Athletic Training graduate and a 1996 Master's in Education graduate. Like Chad, I was lucky enough to meet my bride at TU as well, but she is not on the call. She is recovering from her day as a public school teacher. I am the Associate Dean of Health Sciences at the University of Tulsa, a professor of athletic training, and also the director of the new Center for Academic Advising. So also a parent of a current TU junior. So really look forward to visiting with you guys. I've been involved with the Alumni Association Board of Directors really since about 2005 when I joined the faculty at Tulsa. So it's been an absolute joy and love doing things like this.
And I'm Matt Warren. Good evening, everyone. I am an 06 graduate of TU, political science and economics. And then I got a master's degree in English at TU in 09 before going to law school. And while practicing law in Oklahoma City, I served as the president of the Oklahoma City Alumni Chapter. And then about 4 years ago, I came home to TU to be our Title IX coordinator and establish a Title IX office at the university. But I am currently Vice President for Risk Management and the university's Chief Compliance Officer.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. And thanks everyone for being here and sharing your enthusiasm for TU with those on the call and those who might watch this recording later. So appreciate it. Lots of questions, as I said, were presented and submitted as part of the registration form for this evening. So I'm going to start with those questions, but certainly for all of those who are here this evening, again, thanks to you for attending. Feel free to post any questions you have in the chat, and either my colleague Hannah will get to them if they are admission related, or certainly if they are for the panelists, I will ask those questions for the panelists to answer. You can always direct message me through the chat as well. If you don't want everybody to see your particular questions, you're welcome to do that. So I am going to start, let's see, Thomas, I'm going to start with you. And what Thomas failed to mention is that I was his admission counselor in St. Louis. We go way back. So I'm thrilled to have you here tonight. And I'm going to ask you the first question, which is, what did you like best and least about TU, both as a student there and then later as an alum? What do you like most and least about TU?
Great to see you again, Teresa. One of the things I liked most about TU was that it was and always is a university that has just been centered around relationships for me. Being a smaller undergraduate private university, I very much got so much value from the relationships on campus, from having classes that were no more than 20 or 30 students. You really got to create really great relationships with your classmates, but then also your faculty. And then that translated so much to now that I'm working in my career, kind of the power of the Alumni Association. TU is a small but powerful university with a even more powerful alumni connection. So from being involved with the Alumni Association to making contacts in my current job that I'm in now, I've just learned that the Golden Hurricane flag that we all share and love holds so much power for all of us. So very, very thankful for the small university and the relationships that I was able to build. What I probably liked least about it was that I think I probably, while I was a student, would have loved for our athletics to have been a little bit better. Growing up in the Midwest and so close to so many schools like Mizzou and OU, you really wanted to have those bragging rights. TU being a D1 school, you play a lot of major universities, and sometimes we got our butt kicked. And so, but with that, there's always the double-sided sword of being able to, go to games at the Ohio State University and Notre Dame, which we did win in 2011. So definitely, some highs and lows from that experience.
Yes, very much so. And I was also at that Notre Dame game, and we are undefeated against Notre Dame, right? So, Ron, I'm going to ask that same question of you. I'll repeat the question. So what did you like best and least about, what do you like best and least about TU, both when you were a student there and then now as a parent of a current TU student?
Wow. Well, best is, it's the people. TU is such a unique and wonderful place. There is, everyone has a crowd, has a home, has a family, and it really is just an incredible place. I can say the same thing is true about my daughter. Again, she's a junior, and the friends that she's made at TU that she's extremely close with, I can see that continuing the same way that the friends that my wife and I made while we were there. I think it's funny we talk about these things and why do you go to college, right? To get your degree, to set you up for a career, and right, and all of that stuff happens, but it's kind of secondary to the relationships that you make and that, right, and everything that happens at TU. So what I like most, I did like that the most. But Thomas took my answer for what I liked the least. There's just not a lot. I've just never really thought about that question. You stumped me, Teresa, and that's hard to do. It really is, honestly.
So
I didn't like taking chemistry. I don't like chemistry, so I didn't like taking chemistry. But aside from that, it was good.
Very nice. Very good. I asked that question in a student panel a few years ago, and the student was stumped as well. And she finally said, when it rains, sometimes there are a lot of puddles on the east side of campus over by the engineering buildings. And I thought, if that is the worst thing about the campus, we're in pretty good shape. I was pretty happy with that answer.
Lisa, I'm going to jump real quick because for me, I think one of the things that was the least TU has really done well in addressing, I think Ron can relate to this. When we were in school, TU, there was a fairly decent chunk of the enrollment that was a commuter school, and the campus itself was not a campus. There was not the Chapman Commons. There was no tailgating. There was not these, there was no Reynolds Center for that matter. We played at the convention center downtown. And for people on the call, the investment that TU has made over 30 years being in mechanical construction here, they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in this campus. And so through our daughter's eyes and her stories and the things, it's amazing to see how much of a campus feel it is, to be there on game day, not even game day. One of the things they did this year, and Carrie will laugh because I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world, with everything that was going on with COVID, obviously TU has done a phenomenal job keeping the students safe. And they've been, when they've had contract tracing, they had the quarantine stuff, but TU recognized that the students just wanted to be outside. And so one of the coolest things they did is there's an area between the stadium and the dorms that TU, I don't know what they spent, but they strung all kinds of, exterior accent lighting, put soft side seating and fire pits. And my daughter was saying, it is packed every night. I think they still have it going. They may be getting ready to take it down, but just the fact that they recognize that And again, kind of to what Thomas was alluding to, just in enhancing that community environment and giving the students opportunities to socialize together in a safe manner. I just think what TU has done to promote a campus environment is phenomenal compared to when we were in school back in the early 90s.
That's great. Thanks, Chad. Anybody else want to chime in? All right, I'm gonna move on to another question. So I'm going to ask Lucinda. You seem pretty well connected. Everybody does, very well connected with TU's campus. Can you describe the culture on TU's campus? What was it like when you were a student there, and have you seen it shift? What is it like now?
You know, I think the first word that comes to mind, and people have said this, is community, but I would even go a step further and I would say family. I think that one of the things that I have always loved about TU and really stuck out even from the first time I visited campus is that people know each other. And that's you don't get that everywhere. And going to much bigger schools or just even schools that aren't necessarily quite as warm, I think there's a real intentionality in building community from the time someone steps on campus. But that also means, you know, as a student, you have to step into those opportunities. And so I would say, you know, that family feel comes from, you know, it's a two-way street. So as long as you are ready to step into a family, there's one for you to find. Because there's so many opportunities. And I think that's something that's continued to build. And there's just more and more awareness of the kinds of opportunities that students want and need to feel that sense of acceptance, community, to really create that family feel. So I think that's something that I experienced. I've, you know, found lifelong friends there at TU, and I see that continuing to be a focus for a lot of the, you know, faculty and staff.
That's great. Thank you. And Matt, I'm going to ask you the same question just about the culture on TU's campus when you were a TU student, and then now that you come back home, not only to Tulsa, but also to the university in a administrative role here.
Sure. I think for me as a student, especially since the word community and family have already been used, I think I would approach it from the sense of just an openness. I felt that there were so many differences among our student body, but it does not feel like disparate communities. It just feels like this open and welcoming environment. And so, you know, I felt that there was just a really good collaboration among our student body, and then among the students to staff and students to faculty. And that sort of just was the hallmark of TU. We're a friendly place, and, you know, people say hello and they introduce themselves. And I think that really just pervades sort of our campus culture. And, you know, part of that is where we are in the country, but part of that is just really unique to the University of Tulsa. And I think you'll find that as a student, and I think you'll find that as an alum afterwards, that you meet somebody from TU and it's a smile and a handshake, and people are just open and welcoming. And so I think that was a real big part of the culture when I was there as a student. And I think that's still a hallmark today that I notice when I'm on campus and, you know, in my current role. And that's something that we work very hard on in my department to make sort of policy and procedure around, that we want to be an inclusive, equitable, diverse campus that is accessible and welcoming to everyone. And I think that's a hallmark of our mission, and it's a hallmark of the work we want to do.
Very much so. Thank you. Does anybody else want to chime in before I go on to the next question?
I'll chime in there. Yeah. You know what? Another thing that comes to my mind is passionate and high achieving. Why that comes to mind so much is that from the moment I stepped foot on campus to now in my career, I've always been surrounded by TU individuals, and you just quickly recognize that people in this community care about being great at what they do. And it doesn't matter if it's someone that's on the dance team at the university or someone that's majoring in physics or chemical engineering. There is this culture at the university of seeking excellence and wanting to be the best at what you can be and stand up for your beliefs. And I've seen that carry on through some of my job roles. It is no coincidence when you're able to spot a fellow TU alum in a meeting on a board that you're serving on, because they are the ones that they're not going to be quiet. They're going to speak their mind. They're going to want to execute and get things done. The prior company that I worked for, we learned that the CEO of the company was a TU alum. And so you can really feel that from the university. I say it constantly, the small but mighty University of Tulsa. And I think it just creates this culture of high achieving individuals that are very passionate about what they do.
I love that. Thanks, Thomas. Geneva, I'm going to point this question to you. Can you talk about your academic experiences outside of the classroom, whether they were research opportunities, academic competitions, internships, those kinds of things? What kinds of experiences did you have as a TU student?
Sure. And I was in the arts and science world, so the research question is probably better suited for maybe somebody who's more in the science base, because I know that there were tons of opportunities in that world. I mean, there are tons of opportunities on all sides of the spectrum, but one of the things that I really found in that College of Arts and Sciences is that the professors were always willing to kind of serve as mentors. So even through the research process of doing academic work, there was always that hand-to-hand experience, and you always had a lot of guidance with that. I did some stuff with the Global Alliance that was kind of on TU's campus, but as a separate entity. I was an intern there, and I had a ton of different work experiences that were tied into TU as well. So as far as research, I can't say that I was a big researcher on campus, so I'm going to probably punt that to somebody who maybe had a little bit more expertise in that area.
Thank you so much. Anybody else by show of hands? Anyone? Friends, your kids. So I'm going to mention really quickly, since I did say that I'm a parent of a recent TU alum, my son is had a double major in physics and exercise science, and he did the TURC program, the Tulsa Undergraduate Research Challenge, one summer, and ended up having his physics research. That was a joint physics research program or experience with his faculty mentor and a couple of other students, and their research was published in a physics journal that is way over my head. But very exciting and accessible opportunities exist for our undergraduate students.
Hey, Teresa, actually, can I just add an anecdote that is not from my own experience, but my roommate at TU, and still a good friend of mine, she was in the science world, biochemistry, and she actually had a professor at TU that helped facilitate her getting an internship in Poland, and was able to continue her research there and had a lot of published works. So they're in, especially if that is your interest and that is your passion, the faculty will make it happen, and they will help you do what it is that you want to do. For me, that wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. So, that's why I can't speak to it directly, but I did see firsthand that students were doing amazing work and amazing research projects, were getting things published, were, contenders for really high level national awards based on that research. And the faculty really supported that mission throughout the whole process.
Hey, Teresa, I was going to actually follow up and echo kind of what Geneva said there. Is I think TU does a very good job. So obviously coming from the engineering school, you tend to kind of take one of two paths. You either start to go towards the research and academic side for higher level degrees, or you tend to go more towards industry. And so I sit on the advisory board for the mechanical engineering department. It's a group of local individuals in the industry. And so I know today we just did a couple of mock interviews for some of the TU students. We line them up for internships. And I know that's throughout all of the different departments in the engineering college. And I'll actually kind of throw the ball over to Carrie here, because I know from the CPA side, Beta Alpha side, there's tons of opportunities through that.
Right. In the business college, there are so many different organizations you can be involved in. But I think because of the size of TU, it really enables you to be extremely close and personal with your professors. They really do invest in you. I, back in the 90s, was able to have an internship beginning the summer after my freshman year that continued on through and I was very involved on campus, but felt like I really wanted to keep this internship for that practice until I graduated. Our daughter, who is also in the business college seeking an accounting and CIS degree both, she now has an internship as a junior. She has an internship already lined up for this summer, next winter, and then the following summer. And that has all been because of contacts and the assistance of the professors at TU. So getting your name out there, I think, if someone could probably correct me if I'm wrong, the higher rate for accounting, the accounting department of graduates is 100%. So you want this experience in college, you want, to be able to do all of these different things, but at the end of the day, you want to be employed.
Parents do, for sure.
And there's a high rate of that, and a lot of abilities and access.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn to you now for my next question, Chad and Carrie. The question is, so you both are TU alums and you have a daughter at TU. How do you make college affordable? I mean, that's without getting too personal. How is the TU education affordable?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, and it's, I'm very aware of it, TU does a phenomenal job in helping make that affordable. We're very blessed in that our daughter is very academic. And basically, it was really pretty easy. I mean, making that connection with admissions into the financial aid office, they meet one-on-one and say, okay, let's look at your transcripts, what are your interests? And they really do a good job, not only through the university scholarship program, but also to make you aware of industry scholarships, outside scholarships at the university. And just as kind of a side note, so we were fortunate to be able to go to a local private school here in Tulsa. And it was amazing that after all the scholarships, what we pay now is just slightly more than what we pay for our kids in high school. And so really, candidly, our budget was kind of already set up for it. And our daughter is on a program where after the 5th year, she'll have a master's program, and it's not guaranteed, but basically in all the discussions, it pretty much is lining up to where that 5th year will actually be paid for by the university. So I cannot say enough how much TU does to help us make that affordable to where we have the opportunity for our daughter to graduate and be debt-free.
One of the things that we did do as parents is we put a lot of it back on our daughter, Megan, and we told her, you do your part, we'll do our part. And she did. Her part would be being involved in school, doing, well academically in high school. Obviously the testing, which I know is a little bit in flux right now due to COVID and et cetera. But as she was awarded her first round of scholarships, which were wonderful in our opinion to TU, she actually was able to go back and just say, hey, listen, what about this? There were a couple of things that she knew about, and TU really worked with her. So I would say staying in touch with your admissions counselor and really asking them, even if you've received your first round of financial aid or scholarship awards, whatever it may be, just say, I'm really targeting X number. Is there anything else that we can do? And then obviously once they get in to their college, and specifically whatever it may be, going and getting other specific scholarships have been available as well.
Thank you.
Can I add a different experience from a student perspective? So to add some context, I said before, I grew up in New Mexico, and in New Mexico, if you are a resident and you graduate with a certain GPA, you get to go to any state school for free. So of course, that was what my parents wanted me to do. And TU was a hard sell. And there were a few other things besides what Carrie has already mentioned as far as working with admissions counselor, and my admissions counselor was great in trying to help me get as much as I could. But there were other opportunities that I was able to find on campus pretty quickly to help support and subsidize those costs. So one of which was I became an RA actually after my first semester. So I was still a freshman, and I did that through the remainder of my time. Was able to even transition and do that in my sorority house later. So that helped to subsidize the room and board payments for my family. Additionally, I was able to get involved with athletics. So I worked as an equipment manager for a period of time, and that actually had a scholarship associated with it. I did basically anything on campus that you could do that was associated with some type of scholarship or subsidy to help support that endeavor. So, aside from what Carrie said about the student doing their part, if you want to make it happen, even as a student, you do have some control to be able to leverage some additional dollars when you're on campus by doing other things. So just to add that as a perspective.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thomas.
And then also from, just an alumni perspective, I think a lot of us on this call can probably say that we benefited so greatly from different financial support systems that were made possible through the University of Tulsa. And I know that being a part of the alumni board, that we recognize that and have strived to continue to create scholarship opportunities for students so that they continue to have those opportunities. Serving on the Alumni Board of Directors, we were able to create an endowed scholarship for students that launched a couple years ago. Additionally, this past year, we just created an endowment as a part of the Black Alumni Leadership Council. And I'm just so humbled to say that through our Give Greater campaign, which ended this past week, we raised over $25,000 for scholarships for students. So, there is, from an alumni standpoint, there is this continuing understanding of we want to reach back and pull forward. And if you want to be a part of the TU family, we want to do everything in our power to make that happen for you.
Thank you, Thomas. Lucinda, I'm going to point this question to you. So with your role with Life Church and marketing and communications, you know how important it is to keep everyone informed as to what's going on campus. How do you know what's happening as an alum? How do you think parents of current students know what's happening? How do they find out about what the campus events are like and just what's happening on campus, what the hot topics are?
Good question. And I bet that Chad and Carrie and Ron might be able to speak to the parent side a little bit more, but I know that we have worked really hard as alums, and also I know that the university has just worked really hard to make sure that our presence both on social media, email, that we have a lot of channels and that we're doing a good job of not just pushing out communication, but also seeking it out. And so I think there's just a lot of just awareness of how important it is to get information about events and what's going on. I know that Matt's team has done an incredible job with everything going on related to COVID and so many other issues that we're facing. And so I have really admired that the transparency and desire for both the administration and staff and faculty to work really hard to make sure that people are looped in and understand what's going on. And so that's not always easy because there's a lot of things going on, but I feel like the information is there, and you're able to find it. And if you aren't, there are always people to ask, because there is always a friendly face that would be willing to help you find the right person, point you in the right direction.
Ron, do you want to chime in as a parent of a current student?
Yeah, thanks, Lucinda. I'm going to change my last answer about what do I not like about TU, because what I don't like is that as a parent and an alumni and a faculty member, I get every email in triplicate, and I have a very full inbox already. So along the lines of communication, yeah, it is very frequent that we'll get information about important ongoings of the university as faculty. In fact, this week with the announcement of the president, the new president, the alumni email beat the faculty email, which was pretty interesting. So I actually had the information before the dean of our college did, and was able to tell her, and she wasn't very happy about that. So anyway, but parents, the same thing. Constantly information, and obviously now with with social media, and there's a Facebook group that's specifically for parents that is frequented by most of the directors of offices on campus that are really good about responding and getting information and answers to questions out there. So they're really, really good spot to go. So yeah, lots of memes and lots of information out there.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to add one more thing to that, and that is there is a TU Parent and Guardian Facebook group. It's a fairly new group, but it is a group. It's which allows parents to post and pose their questions there, and for other parents to answer those questions. And it's a great way to build community. So I encourage students, parents of students who are currently enrolled or deposited for, planning to attend this fall, to go ahead and join that group. And we would love to have you. Matt, I'm going to turn to you for this next question, and it's actually more through your role as our vice president versus as your role as an alumnus. But the question is the plan for fall 2021 and COVID-19, if you don't mind addressing what our campus might look like this fall.
I will do my best. This is the $64,000 question for everyone across the country, but I can answer it enthusiastically. TU has done such a serious job managing the pandemic and understanding its severity and responding appropriately that we're in a great place. Our campus positivity rate for the last 2 weeks is 0.0%, not one case of COVID-19 that we know about on our campus, which is just about unheard of at this point in the pandemic. And this week, over 50% we passed the 50% mark for our employees, faculty, and staff who've received their vaccine. And we're edging up on 25% for the student body. So we have been aggressively managing what we can throughout the pandemic, and it's set us up in a place that we're able to announce that we're going back to as close as a pre-pandemic experience as we can in the fall. We didn't have roommates this year. We will have roommates again next year. Our sorority and fraternity houses and Rush and all of that will be working at full capacity and normal operations. Our athletic events will be fully staffed with our spectators, and we will be tailgating outside of Chapman Stadium again this year. Our classes will go back to their normal pre-pandemic occupancies, and our students will have a myriad of in-person experiences. And I think there is going to be such a degree of excitement because, we've been through a lot and we've learned a lot, and, we're ready to experience that traditional college life again. And when I think we're in a place to actually deliver on the promise, unlike maybe some other schools that have just kind of waded their way through this. I think we've been intentional and we're in a place to deliver that kind of experience. And at the same time, we're going to keep what worked. I always say, there is good in everything, and we have learned a lot. The outdoor recreation area we created at Thomas Plaza has been a huge hit. We'll be advocating for that to become a permanent installment at the university. There's no reason why that needed to just be something during the pandemic. It's just been wonderful. We've increased our Wi-Fi and classroom technology and our accessibility because we had to learn how to do things online, and we had to do things remotely. And because of that, we're in a place that we can offer those assistive technologies to our students who need them and make sure that they stay connected. And so those kinds of things are our positive takeaways. But then, we anticipate a fall 2021 that is your traditional college experience.
I'm really excited to hear that. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
I'm gonna jump in there real quick, just because I want to thank Matt, because the other thing I think that TU is phenomenal about is the transparency. And, one of the things that we have, or actually I think anybody could access it, TU would post what their positivity rates were, what the history was. And so you could look at it. And as a parent, you're trying to let your kid develop their own independence, right? And kind of let them do their thing, but still your kid. And so you like to have the opportunity as a parent just to kind of know what's going on. And I'm sure Matt has to kind of be somewhat objective, but TU has done a phenomenal job. And because of the size of the school, to his point, everybody had their own room, whether it was an apartment or a residence hall or a sorority. And so I think because of the size, TU had the ability to manage a situation like very few other schools in the country were able to. And I will say, I'm excited to see just what happens in the fall. Just looking at our daughter, I think a lot of times, people kind of hit their routine. I think TU is getting ready to see a fervor on campus because you have every student excited to interact with each other, whether they're freshmen, seniors, whatever activity they're involved in, they're just excited to be together. And I think this could be an amazing semester coming up for TU in the fall.
It's exciting. Thanks, Chad. Geneva, I am going to turn this question to you. So coming from out of state, can you talk about your experience as a resident student at the University of Tulsa, specifically the weekends? What were those weekends like? Did the campus empty out, or were people actually staying on campus and participating in activities? Can you address those kinds of experiences you had?
Sure. I used to kind of jokingly say, and still somewhat say, that I didn't live in Tulsa. I lived at TU because my life was at TU, and I didn't have very many, reasons to leave the campus outside from, going to stores and things like that, especially in the first couple of years. My experience, and I know Chad spoke about this a little bit more, and I think the school used to have a reputation many years ago of being somewhat of a commuter campus. But even, I started at TU more than 15 years ago, and it was already a very residential campus, and I think has remained that way, if not increased. And what TU has done over the last, decade is really increase the number of housing accommodations, and there really isn't a huge reason to not live on campus, even if you're local, because it adds to the convenience of your life, first of all, but second, it adds to the joy of your life, and you or get to interact with your community 24/7 versus, coming in and out. I don't ever recall there being a time where the weekends seemed empty and people cleared out. I mean, with the exception of maybe like a holiday weekend, in which case, most people are doing that anyways, regardless of where you go to school. But by and large, I think TU is a very, very residential campus. Coming from out of state, I mean, I was drivable to home, but it was about 10 hours. So that wasn't a place that I could, go to very quickly or conveniently on a weekend trip. And so, I mean, I did your typical experience where I went home on Thanksgiving, Christmas break, and that was it. The rest of the time I was at TU. And there was never a point in time where I felt like the campus was empty or abandoned, and there was always activity, always things to do. I mean, regardless of what your interests might be, there is plenty to do in and around the campus, so much so that you really don't even have to leave the campus on the weekends to find things that are going on in the community. There's just so much activity, especially during the fall and, sporting seasons, things like that.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to ask one last question, and I would love for each of you to answer it. And we'll just go in the order that you introduced yourself. So Thomas, you're going to go up first. So, and then we're going to split into breakout rooms. So please don't leave while they're answering these questions. We would love for you to stay on. And as soon as they answer, each of them will answer this question. I will describe each of the breakout rooms, and we're going to give you the opportunity to be able to turn your cameras back on and unmute yourselves, and then we can go out into the breakout rooms. But here's the question for you. Many of the students are still trying to finalize their college decision. They have until May 1st, which is the candidate reply date, to make that final decision. So for those who have yet to finalize their decision, how would you help them? What should they be considering, as they're likely at this point thinking about Tulsa versus perhaps one other school? What would you say to help them make that final decision? You might want to think back on your own experience and when you were deciding and how you chose TU. So Thomas, I'm going to start with you.
And I remember this feeling all too well. And Teresa, you may even remember this feeling, because I was one of those who did not decide until May 1st. I was between another university that was pretty close, very similar. And what it came down to was that I knew when I visited TU, when I had met with TU, there was a consistency that came across to me that this was not just going to be where I was going to go to school, but this is where I was going to develop what I was passionate about. And that is what stood out to me from any university that I had really had looked at that point. So what I would encourage all the students to think about is that, and I'll tell you what the same thing that my dad said, it's probably similar to what Chad and Carrie, you've told your kids. This is more than just 4 years. This is an investment. And when you're making this type of an investment, you want to think about the return, and you want to think about 10, 20 years from now, where are you going to be, and is TU going to be the place that's going to help you get there? And for me, once I asked myself that question, there was no doubt that it was the University of Tulsa.
Man, I gotta follow that. So I think the thing that comes to mind, I think my story is not too unsimilar from that, but I would say one of the things is just to really know yourself well enough to know where you're going to thrive. I think that when it came, I was also a late decision person, and it came in down to just the other place I was considering was there's more comfort there. There's more people that I knew, and TU felt like a risk. But I knew that I needed the small environment. I needed to step out, branch out, and develop who I was and figure out, just grow my identity and just know myself better. And TU provided the environment for me to really thrive as a leader and to just step into seeing myself, differently than I did in high school. And it really, I think, set a huge foundation for what my career looked like and just, help shape who I am today.
Yeah, I'm actually going to build on what Lucinda said, in that I think that your choice of the word comfort, I think sometimes people confuse comfort for fit. And I think that you're exactly right. Sometimes there's a comfortable choice, a logical choice, but then there's one where you just fit, and you know it when you have the communication. What I will say is I think one of TU's greatest attributes is its ability to focus on the students that are coming in. And I think that for me, so I was deciding between TU and Vanderbilt. So I knew both, either direction. It was an strong academic institution, but I probably had conversations with 8 or 9 different individuals at TU, from the admissions office, the engineering college, students on campus I'd done an overnight with, and I spoke with one person at the other university. And so when I stepped back and realized we come back to that same word, there's a community involvement when I was talking to the people at TU, as opposed to here was somebody whose list I was on. And that really is what put it over the top for me. So I would say, look and see what universities are really as interested in you as you are interested in their university.
For me personally, I had grown up wanting to go to TU as a little girl. I would go with my family. Many of them graduated from TU, and I would go and sit and watch the Pom Squad and the football games. And we weren't great then either. But then we had some great seasons when we didn't have season tickets. But all of that to say, I knew that I wanted to go. But one of the things that was very enticing was the size and a little bit of prestige that came with TU. And that not many people from my high school were going. So I was really branching out into this small environment. TU small, but it was still larger than the high school that I went to. For our daughter, she was on the flip side. She had been immersed in TU, and she was like, gosh, I don't know. I live in town. And it was between 2 schools. And let me say, first of all, rest easy, because wherever you wind up, you will succeed and you will do well. I think that there are many, many great colleges that are out there. And so rest in that. That being said, I was able to look at our daughter and say, this decision is a little bit of chocolate versus vanilla ice cream. Both are great. Now, what do you think? And for her, some of it was the drive. But what everybody has said, without trying to quote sell you on TU, the truth was it was the accessibility. It was all that had been already offered to her and all that she saw that would be offered to her in the future that gave her great hope about excelling in what she thought she wanted to do, but also being able to pivot if need be and excel in things that she didn't even know that she wanted to do. And that has proven to be true. And I hope that it is for each one of you.
I guess I'm up. I'm going to hit this from a little bit of a different perspective. What I said before about the financial decision. I was the first one in my family to go to college. Neither of my parents had gone, so they didn't come with that background and experience to be able to help me navigate that situation in the same way that maybe some other students had that support. They were supportive, but it was a hard conversation for them to see the price tag and understand the value. And so for me, the decision, I was sold on TU. That was where I wanted to be, and I knew it was my home from the get-go. But part of it was deciding as a family whether or not we could, make that sacrifice to make it happen. And I would say from my parents' perspective, now looking back in retrospect, them having invested and helping me to invest in my education at TU is probably one of the single greatest decisions that they've made. And they, in contrast, my brothers chose a different route, and they love TU. They can't speak enough highly of it. And it's been instrumental in so many of the subsequent relationships and endeavors that I've had in my life. Literally every one of my close friends to this day is my closest circle is from TU. And that's just been invaluable to me, but also to my family as a whole.
Sorry, slow on the button. You just have a tremendous opportunity in front of you. I mean, I honestly, Carrie's right. There are a lot of good schools out there, but schools are different. And I think, my perspective is health sciences, so it's a bit different. Most of the people who come out of our college and my students go on to graduate school, and everyone who's applying to graduate medical school has a good GPA, right? Everyone. So how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? And that's all the stuff that we do. That is the faculty research opportunities you have as an undergraduate student. That is the internships that you've heard people talk about. That is the study abroad, faculty-led study abroad or individual study abroad that I don't think we've talked about much today. It's, I don't even have a one word for it. It's all of the in-between stuff. It's all of the stuff that happens in between classes, at night, in the gym, in the student union, right? If you meet a professor for a meal, if you, like I said, if you take a study abroad trip with a professor, like there is all the in-between stuff that at the end of the day adds up, right? I didn't even mention the spouses. Sorry, Carrie. I didn't even mention the friends, like it's all of that stuff. I mean, I look at the people that I went to school with and what they're doing and how successful they are. And I look at my daughter's friends that she's going to school with now and what their plans are and what their dreams are. And it's just amazing. So just, that's why you should come to TU, because all of the in-between stuff, right? And it's the in-between stuff, no matter who you are. I mean, Thomas, like you were going to find out what you were going to be passionate about. Like absolutely. And that happens pretty quickly. Like, it's pretty amazing how that happens. And that's one of the great parts about my job is I get to see that happen year after year after year. And that's why I got really excited and clapped when Matt talked about having our classes full in person again and having our stadium full and those types of things. So one of my favorite places to interact with students is the Collins Fitness Center on campus. I love interacting with students outside of a classroom, outside of my office, just having a conversation. And that leads to so many places and so many things. It's amazing. I will stop rambling now and hand off to Matt.
So I like that I get to go last on this question. It's one of the benefits of being at the end of the alphabet. Get to hear all these answers. And one thing I loved is that everyone had a very different answer, but we all ended up at the same place for our own reasons. And I think that's just something just to point out. My reason is also a little different than the ones we've heard so far. I grew up in Oklahoma, but not in Tulsa, about an hour outside. And I did not want to go to college in Oklahoma. I was sort of done with Oklahoma after high school. I had never felt like it was the place for me culturally. It was not what I felt like growing up. And I applied to schools all over the country. But my family said, you have to apply to one school in Oklahoma. You have to do one or we're not paying these application fees. And so, in my humble opinion, TU is by far the best school in Oklahoma. And I was like, I'll apply to TU. And so I did. And I ended up getting in lots of places, and I got into TU, and I visited campus. And within an hour of my campus visit, TU went from the school that I applied to because I told my family I would apply to one school in Oklahoma to a front runner. And it was all because I had, they do these great jobs on our campus visits. And I met with a senior faculty member, Steve Stive. He was the chair of economics for a long time here at TU. He's retired now. Fantastic human being, great professor, and just like a mentor immediately. And in the span of a 1 hour conversation, I knew that I could get the kinds of interactions with faculty and build the kind of relationships that would give me the opportunity to compete for the kind of nationally competitive things that I was interested in. And I ended up coming to TU on that promise. And in my junior year, I was very fortunate to win a Harry S. Truman Scholarship as a Oklahoma representative. It's the 8th in the school's history at the time, but we've had several more since then, since I won it. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I gone to some of the other schools I looked at where, everyone is in this 60-person lecture hall, and it's your senior year before you're sitting around a conference table talking to faculty. You don't have time to build those kinds of relationships with faculty when you don't meet them until your junior and senior year. When you are being taught exclusively by TAs in large lecture halls for most of your experience, how does that person write a letter of recommendation for you? You're lucky if they know your name. But at the University of Tulsa, right out the gate, freshman year, you are building relationships with tenured faculty who are established in their disciplines, and it works. I mean, it's very helpful, whether it's graduate school, whether it's a scholarship, whether it's a job. I read a lot of letters of recommendation now in what I do, and I can always tell the difference between the boilerplate letter of recommendation from the kid who got an A in a class with 100 people versus the tailored recommendation from the 8-person conference room type, seminar, where that faculty member knows their students' like hopes and dreams and wants, and they can convey that. And it's hard to put a price or a value on that kind of experience. That was my experience, and I know that is a lot of people's experience at the University